Everyone jokes about living in an Orwellian dystopia. I somehow ended up in Sorokin's. Valentin Sorokin is a contemporary Russian author. He has a few books under his belt. One of them is The Day of the Oprichnik, published 2006. I don't have a physical copy to hold. My library didn't have one. I wonder why. But as far as I can tell, it's not actually banned in Russia yet. So let's proceed. In this dystopian story, Sorokin envisions a Russia of not-so-distant future, a Russia that will have returned to a feudal monarchy of sorts, a Russia that is walled off from the West, a Russia that is ruled by a Tsar with the help of his oprichniks. This story depicts a day in the life of an oprichnik, a man called Kamyaga, a day that consists of disposal of Tsar's political opponents, censorship duties, a clash with customs over a substantial bribe, running a few errands for the queen, a different bribe for patronage in court, and so much more than that. Sorokin draws inspiration from the political landscape of the country as it was in the 1990s, early 2000s, but also from the broad historical context of Russia. The very inclusion of Oprichnik takes us all the way back to the 16th century and the rule of Ivan the Terrible, the great guy that he was, as Oprichnik was his personal guard. That's the same role that they play in the book for the new Tsar, but they were also responsible for the mass repressions of the Russian aristocrats of the time period called boyars, and that included public executions and confiscation of land and property, and that's one of the first tasks that Kamyaga performs in the book as well. The book itself starts with a dedication to Malyuta Skuratov, one of the leaders of Ivan the Terrible's oprichniks. At the same time, Sorokin draws attention to the similarities of that oprichnik to organized crime units in the 90s and some of the behaviors of siloviki in the 2000s Russia. In essence, it's a history repeats itself narrative where political opponents or simply folks who've amassed too much power or wealth and have fallen from the grace of their leader are removed by force. Any similarity to current-day Russia is obviously coincidental. That said, since it is a satirical dystopia, Sorokin pokes fun at various situations and people in his novels, some more subtle than others. There are recognizable staples such as corruption, extortion, political assassination, general depravity of people in power if turned to the highest degree. I do hope you do not find too many similarities with your own country's climate. I can confirm that quite a few things are true for mine, unfortunately. Sorokin also references real-life people, like he mentions a few artists like Fyodor the Bald, who is obviously a stand-in for Fyodor Bondarchuk, the famous movie director, or the Queen's favorite actor Khabensky is obviously Konstantin Khabensky. But then if we go further back, His Majesty's favorite is a prima ballerina of Bolshoi Theatre, and that's obviously a nod to Mathilde Kshestinska, that's Nikolai II's favorite. Or, for example, in the book, the queen allegedly transforms into a dog to have sex with hounds, and that's obviously a reference to Catherine the Great, who was rumored to have had sex with horses. It's not true, by the way, about Catherine. The rumors were spread to discredit a female leader. Patriarchy, man. But Sorokin has many more of these allegories to real people, and you really need to know your history and political landscape to get them all. I didn't get them all. I needed Wikipedia's help with that. At the same time, while there are all these nods to the past, the story is also futuristic in a sense. They have cell phones, video calls, faster cars, faster planes, new medical drugs and not so medical drugs. But at the same time, the modes of repression and the kind of tools used are very much old school. They have fun names like the Red Rooster, but all that means is that they burn down the house. The oprichniks hang the nobleman, but mercifully send his kids to an orphanage. They gang rape the wife, but then send her home to her relatives. And they all go to Uspensky Cathedral to pray afterwards. In a sense, this world is built on contradictions like this. The country is walled off from the West and its terrible influence, but it also looks to be completely overtaken by China. All of the products, most of the products that Kamyaga consumes or has, they come from China, hilariously, like caviar from Shanghai, but also there are 28 million Chinese people living in Siberia. Radio Svoboda broadcasts extracts from Crime and Punishment interspersed with profanity, quite hilariously, in opposition to the ban on swear words in Russia. The oprichniks all pray to God, but at the same time magic seems to exist in this universe. They all claim tradition and traditional lifestyle, but they all participate in the same-sex sex. Side note, this is the most hilarious gay orgy scene I have ever read in my entire life. And I've read bed/fanfiction in my day, so I do know what I'm talking about. I wish I was recording when I first read the scene because it's the cringiest but also the weirdest scene ever. To give you a sense, their dicks glow in the dark and they essentially form a human centipede. I cannot tell you more, and also need to put this on the screen because mentions of LGBT community is a felony in Russia and I don't want to go to jail. Not over this. This world is over-the-top grotesque. It is satire, so it makes sense. And the themes that you would expect from a story like this, they're all there. There is this metaphor in the book. It both starts and ends with Kamyaga dreaming of a white stallion that essentially represents this bright future and hope for Russia, and it goes further and further away from him. And that's about the only thing that truly matters here. All of the actions that Kamyaga performs in the story, they only kind of push this bright future further away from him, if not totally destroy it. I don't want to draw too many parallels to current-day Russia, not only because they are quite obvious, but also my immortal soul is still very much trapped in this flesh prison that is on Russian soil, and I don't want to go to actual prison, so I will leave those parallels to you. What I'll say is that I'm not even 100% sure if I loved the book. I kind of enjoyed it in an academic sense, if you will, because it's not a book that you read for fun, it's a book that makes you think, as cliché as that sounds. I don't even want to call it a cautionary tale, nobody listens to those, but it has enough recognizable staples from our lives in it to make it of use. There are 2 bits in the book that make it worth it for me. Well, 3 kind of, but you will see. First is the characterization of the protagonist. Kamyaga fully embraces this world that he lives in. He glorifies it, he revels in it, all the despicable parts of it. He loves it unconditionally, without reservation or restraint, with a ground yell of hail. He seems to be completely incapable of critical thinking. Every thought that even comes close to it, he dismisses it with the same yell of hail, thank God and praise to our majesty. This same world where he can and should rape a woman, but he cannot swear. Where he takes powerful hallucinogenics, but at the same time thinks that he probably should quit smoking because it's not good for you. The same world where he kills a nobleman and lives in his house, but does not understand that he might be next. This lack of reflection is interesting to me, because we see it a lot in real-life people, the people in power. Like the politicians and government agents, they commit heinous crimes and go to church. They arrest their political opponents and get arrested themselves the next day because the system that they've built is ruthless. There is no safety in it. There is nothing that you can do to escape its clutches. And we ask ourselves sometimes how such hypocrisy and willful ignorance can exist, and this is how. We might not like this answer, but Kamyaga represents it for us. This is how. Second thing is there is a bit in the book where Kamyaga goes to see a clairvoyant/witch to ask her to put a spell on one of the queen's gods, so the god has sex with the queen. Accepted, don't ask. But at the end of the meeting, Kamyaga finally has the courage to ask her a question that he has. And he asks her, what is to be of Russia, or what's going to happen to Russia? And her answer is nothing. And there is ambiguity in the way that she answers, because you can read it as nothing is going to happen to Russia, everything is going to be fine, but at the same time it can mean that Russia is going to become nothing. And if you were to ask me for a thesis statement of this book, then this is it. There is no certainty in the future of a country if the trajectory of political decisions is going to lead to nothing or if it's going to lead to nothing. This ambiguity in the answer of the witch is totally lost in translation, by the way. She simply says it's going to be all right. And that brings me to the third aspect of the book, its language. Sorokin uses this cadence that is reminiscent of the language mostly used in Berliners that we almost automatically associate with the past, but he also mixes these anacronyms with the newly techno-futuristic lingo, so it creates an interesting mix of the old-timey language in the futuristic setting, and almost all of it is lost in translation. And I cannot even blame the translator for it. It's a difficult task. It's just simply unfortunate this entire layer of the story is completely lost on you, and it's probably the biggest selling point for me if I were to recommend this book to any of the Russian speakers. This tale that is repeated throughout the story has much more punch when it's a Russian goida. Should you read the book? Well, maybe not, unless you are very into this type of dystopia or satire on current-day Russia. Just keep in mind that you're going to need a lot of context for it. Otherwise, I'm not 100% sure what an unprepared foreign reader is going to get out of it. However, this book is translated into many languages, so there is obviously an audience for it, and you might buy it. So check it out. Just keep in mind, trigger warnings do apply. All of these trigger warnings do apply, so proceed with caution.